My name is Anna, and I thought I had done everything right. For 18 years, every extra shift, every canceled vacation, and every worn-out pair of sneakers went toward one goal: the college fund for my daughter, Mia. It totaled $199,000. That number was my private trophy, the proof that I had beaten the odds as a single mother. Then, one morning, I opened my banking app and felt the floor vanish beneath me. My joint savings account, the one I had naively kept with my mother for security ever since I was 19, showed a balance of exactly zero. One single transaction, $199,000, had been withdrawn by an authorized user. The name was hers, my mother. I drove to her house with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, replaying every sacrifice I'd made for that money. When I confronted her, my voice was low and deadly calm. "Where is Mia's college fund?" She didn't flinch. She actually laughed. "Thanks for funding your sister's wedding," she said, as if it were a joke, as if she hadn't just burned my daughter's future to the ground. Then she added almost casually, "And no, Anna, you're not invited. It's a small family event. You understand?" I smiled, but it felt like my face might crack. "Sure," I whispered. "I understand perfectly." Moments later, as I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed. My father's name lit up on the screen. When I answered, all I heard was his voice breaking on the other end. He was crying. That was when I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about everything my family had been hiding for years. I sat in my car in front of my mother's house, staring at the steering wheel as my father sobbed into the phone. I had never heard him like that before. "Anna, I didn't know she actually did it," he choked out. "She told me she was reallocating some family funds, but I never thought she meant your savings, honey." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "Dad, it was my daughter's college fund. Every dollar I put in that account was for Mia. You knew that." There was a pause, filled only by the sound of his uneven breathing. "Your mother said the account was still joint," he murmured. "She said you weren't using it, that we'd help Rebecca get her dream wedding and then figure things out later. I thought she meant she'd pay it back somehow." His words twisted in my chest like a knife. This wasn't just betrayal, it was premeditated. "Dad, you signed off on this?" I asked quietly. After another pause, he spoke, sounding smaller than I'd ever imagined. "I didn't sign anything. Your mom handled it. She always has. I should have asked more questions. I'm so sorry, Anna." I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the seat. My mother had opened that account with me when I was 19, right after Mia was born. "Put my name on it too," she'd said back then. "If something happens to you, I can protect the money for Mia." I was young, exhausted, and grateful. I never thought the person I trusted to protect the money would be the one to steal it. Growing up, money was my mother's religion. She had grown up poor and always reminded us how she'd had to fight for every dollar. But somewhere along the way, her fear of poverty warped into an obsession with control. Money wasn't security to her, it was power. She decided who got help and who stayed desperate. I had watched her bail out my younger sister, Rebecca, more times than I could count, paying off credit cards, helping with rent, always with the same excuse: "Rebecca just needs a little boost. She's the baby." Me? I got lectures about standing on my own 2 feet. And I did. I worked nights at the hospital and mornings at a tiny cafe when Mia was small. While my mother was buying designer bags on sale, I was calculating how many textbooks I could afford that month. So when I realized she'd used a joint account loophole to strip nearly $200,000 from my daughter's future to funnel it into a wedding I wasn't even invited to, something inside me snapped. "Dad," I said slowly, "did you know she never planned to invite me or Mia?" His silence answered the question better than words ever could. Finally, he whispered, "She said it would be awkward with you there. She said you'd make things about yourself. But Anna, stealing the money, that's too far." "Too far?" I repeated, as if there were a line she had respected before this. "I'm going to fix this," I told him, my voice steady now. "I don't know how yet, but I'm not letting her get away with it. Not this time." After I hung up, I sat in that driveway for a long time, watching the curtains in her front window twitch. She was still peeking at me, trying to decide whether I was a threat to be neutralized or a problem to be dismissed. For the first time, I looked back at my life and saw a pattern I had been too tired to name. Every time I began to build something of my own, she found a way to take credit, take control, or take it away entirely. Not this time. Mia was 18. She had cried with joy when she saw her projected college costs and realized we could actually afford it. How was I supposed to look her in the eye and tell her that her grandmother had gambled her future away on flowers, catering, and a white dress? That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a notepad, writing down everything I knew about the account. Every date, every deposit, every statement. I underlined one fact over and over again. The account had been created for Mia's education. I had the emails and a clear paper trail. My mother might have the money now, but I had something she'd never considered: evidence. The next morning, I dragged myself to work on autopilot, my body going through the motions at the hospital, while my mind replayed every conversation I'd ever had with my mother about family obligations. Between patients, I caught myself staring at the clock, counting down the minutes until I could talk to the one person who had never made me feel small: Liam. Liam wasn't Mia's father, but he had stepped into our lives as if he had always belonged there. He knew about the joint account and how long I had been saving. When he walked into my kitchen that evening with takeout bags and a worried look, I didn't even try to play strong. I told him everything: my mother's laugh, her dismissive thanks, and my father's tearful phone call. Liam sat quietly, his hands folded and his jaw tightening. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said. "This is bad, but it's not hopeless." I let out a bitter laugh. "She took everything, Liam. How is that not hopeless?" He tapped the table. "Because you didn't just throw money in a box under her bed. You have records. You have proof that this was intended as a college fund for Mia. That matters." He was right. I had kept every bank statement and every email confirmation from whenever I transferred money into that account. At the time, it was just my way of keeping track. Now, it was a trail of evidence. "Step 1, Liam said, leaning forward, we organize your documentation. Step 2, we talk to the bank. Step 3, we talk to a lawyer." I blinked. "A lawyer? You think this is a legal case?" He gave me a look. "Anna, she took $199,000 from a joint account that you funded almost entirely by yourself for a clearly documented purpose. She used it without your consent to fund someone else's wedding. At the very least, the law will take that seriously. At worst for her, it's fraud." The word fraud hung in the air. My mother, who loved to brag about her reputation and respectability at church and in the community, being investigated for fraud. I couldn't deny the small, vicious flicker of satisfaction in my chest. Still, a part of me hesitated. "She's my mom," I whispered. "Do I really want to drag her into court?" Liam's gaze softened, but his voice stayed firm. "She stopped being just your mom when she stole your daughter's future. If you don't draw a line now, what else will she feel entitled to take?" That night, we spread the documents out across the dining table. There were old statements dating back to when Mia was in diapers, with notes in my handwriting marking extra deposits, overtime shifts, Christmas bonuses, tax refunds. Every dollar had a story, and every story ended in the same place: my mother's smirking face. I pulled up the online banking portal again and looked at the transaction details. The withdrawal had been processed at the branch where my mother knew all the tellers by their first names. She probably walked in smiling, spinning some charming story about helping her struggling daughter manage her finances. The thought made my stomach turn. "Do you think she acted alone?" I asked Liam. "Or do you think Rebecca and Jason know?" He considered that. "My guess? Rebecca knows the money came from you in some vague way, but your mom probably framed it as, Anna is helping pay for the wedding. She owes the family. As for Jason, if he's smart and as involved in finances as you've said, he might know more than he lets on." I swallowed. Jason worked in finance. If he had helped my mother move the money, That opened up a whole new angle. So, I'm up against my own mother and a future son-in-law who knows how to hide money, I muttered. Perfect. Or, Liam countered, you're up against two people who think you're too soft to fight back. That's their mistake. Before bed, I texted my father. Dad, I need you to tell me everything Mom said about that account. Dates, phrases, anything. This is serious. He replied with just one sentence. Whatever you decide, I'll back you this time. 2 days later, I took a personal day from the hospital and walked into the bank that had held my savings hostage for nearly 2 decades. Liam came with me, a steady presence at my side. When we sat down with the branch manager, I laid out my folder of documents on his desk. This account was opened 18 years ago, I began, my voice steady. It was created for one purpose, to fund my daughter's college education. I contributed almost all of the money you see here. I slid a highlighted statement across the desk, showing the final balance before the withdrawal. Last week, my mother withdrew the entire amount without my knowledge or consent. The manager adjusted his glasses, scanning the papers. Legally, he said carefully, a joint account gives both parties the right to withdraw funds. I nodded. I had expected that speech. However, I was no longer a 19-year-old girl looking for permission. I was a mother looking for justice. I understand that, I replied, but I want it on record that this was done against the intent and understanding of the person who funded the account. I want every detail of that withdrawal, who approved it, what identification was shown, and what was said at the counter. He hesitated, then logged into his system. After a few minutes, he printed a report and handed it to me. The withdrawal was done in person by Carla, he said. She presented her identification and signed the form. It was processed as a legitimate transaction. No surprise there. My mother knew how to play by the rules just enough to avoid suspicion. Can you at least provide a notarized statement summarizing this? I asked, stating that she withdrew the funds from a joint account funded by me. The manager looked between me and Liam, then nodded. Yes, I can do that. As he prepared the document, Liam squeezed my hand under the table. It wasn't justice yet, but it was a piece of the puzzle. That afternoon, we met with a lawyer recommended by one of Liam's co-workers. Her name was Sandra, and she had the calm, sharp gaze of someone who had seen every kind of family disaster. After listening to my story and flipping through my evidence, she leaned back in her chair. Legally, your mother had the right to access the funds, she said. My heart sank. Then she continued, but that doesn't mean she's safe from consequences. The key here is intent and documentation. You have emails where you explicitly refer to this account as your daughter's college fund. You have proof you are the primary contributor. If we can show that your mother misrepresented her reason for accessing the funds or used them in a way that constitutes unjust enrichment, you may have a strong civil case. Civil, not criminal, I asked. She tapped her pen thoughtfully. At this stage, it looks more civil, seeking restitution and potentially damages. However, if there is evidence she lied to bank staff, forged anything, or colluded with someone, say your sister's fiancé, to conceal the source of the funds, it could edge into criminal territory. That would be up to law enforcement. The idea of my mother facing criminal charges left a bitter taste in my mouth. I didn't know if I wanted her in handcuffs. I just wanted Mia's future back. What about the wedding, I asked. It's in a few weeks. She used the money to pay for it. Sandra's eyes sharpened. Good. That gives us leverage. If we can prove that wedding vendors were paid from those funds, we establish a direct line from your savings to their event. Judges do not like to see someone blow through money that isn't theirs on luxuries. On the drive home, Liam and I sat in thoughtful silence. Finally, he said, You know, if Jason is involved in tracking finances for the wedding, we might not need to guess. We might be able to get invoices, transfers, or even emails tying him and your mother together on this. How, I asked. He'll never just hand those over. Liam shrugged. Maybe not willingly, but people talk. Vendors talk. And your dad? He might know more than he realizes. That evening, I called my father again. This time, I asked specific questions. When had my mother started talking about helping with the wedding? Did she mention specific amounts? Had she ever said where the money was coming from in exact terms? He hesitated more than once, clearly torn between loyalty and guilt. She said you weren't really using the account, he finally admitted. She said you were too practical to mind helping your sister. She kept saying, Anna will still figure something out for Mia. She always does. My chest burned. My mother had turned my reliability into a weapon against me. She counted on me being the responsible one, the one who would figure something out no matter what chaos she unleashed. After I hung up, I went to Mia's room. She was sitting at her desk, scrolling through college websites. I leaned against the doorway, suddenly unsure how to tell her. Hey, sweetheart, I said softly. Can we talk? She turned, her eyes bright. Did you get the financial aid estimates for state? I was just looking at dorm options. They're tiny, but kind of cute. The words lodged in my throat. I sat on the edge of her bed. Mia, something happened with your college fund. I told her the truth, every ugly detail. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. Grandma took it, she whispered. All of it? I nodded, feeling my own eyes sting. I'm fighting to get it back. I've talked to the bank, a lawyer, and your grandpa. I'm not giving up. But I didn't want you to dream about campuses and dorms without knowing what we're up against. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just said in a small, shaken voice, I knew she liked Aunt Rebecca more. I just didn't think she'd sell my future for a party. That sentence broke something in me that my mother could never fix. That night, Mia fell asleep with her laptop still open to a picture of the campus she had always wanted. I closed it gently and went back to the table where my documents lay. My mother had made a choice. Now I would make mine. The weeks leading up to Rebecca's wedding felt like living in a pressure cooker. Everywhere I turned, social media, extended family group chats, even random conversations at the grocery store, someone was talking about the big day. Photos of floral arrangements, venue sneak peeks, and dress fittings floated through my feeds like confetti. I blocked the group chats and muted half my contacts, but the wedding still seeped into my life like smoke under a door. My mother did not reach out. Neither did Rebecca. The silence from their side was almost louder than the gossip I heard from everyone else. My father, however, called more often, sometimes just to check on Mia, and sometimes to awkwardly ask how things were going with the lawyer. The guilt in his voice was constant. One evening, he let something slip that made my heart stop. Your mom was bragging to one of the relatives, he said quietly. She said something like, at least the wedding is fully covered. My girls might not always be grateful, but they'll thank me one day. I gripped the phone tighter. Did she say how it was covered? He sighed. She said, Anna's savings were just sitting there. Better to use them for something beautiful than let them gather dust. She said it like she was doing you a favor. Something beautiful. My teeth ground together. My daughter's education had been reduced to centerpieces and a DJ. With Sandra's guidance, we focused on building a clear chain between the stolen money and the wedding. Liam helped me compile a spreadsheet tracking every large payment my mother had made in the months leading up to the withdrawal. The pattern was obvious. Massive transfers to vendors, often just days after deposits from my paychecks. When Sandra saw the spreadsheet, her eyebrows rose. Judges love patterns, she said, and they really love clear timelines. This is good. We also started quietly reaching out to vendors. I posed as a family member helping coordinate finances and asked for duplicate invoices for my records. You would be amazed how quickly people will email you sensitive information if you sound just stressed and polite enough. One florist even forwarded a message thread between my mother and Rebecca where my mother wrote, "Don't worry about the cost, darling. Your sister's college stash is finally good for something fun." That email became Exhibit A. Meanwhile, Mia grew quieter. She kept her grades up, still went to school, and still worked her part-time job, but she avoided any conversation that involved the future. One night, I found her deleting college newsletters from her inbox unread. "Hey," I said softly, "why are you doing that?" She shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "What's the point, Mom? We can't afford it. I'll just go to community college and figure it out later." My heart twisted. "Mia, we're fighting this. And even if the worst happens and we don't get every dollar back, you are not giving up on your dreams because your grandmother made a selfish choice." She looked up at me, her eyes red. "But what if we lose?" she whispered. "What if she gets away with it and I'm the one who pays?" I had no easy answer, so I told her the only truth I could offer. "If we lose, you'll still have me. You'll still have Liam. You'll still have your own strength. We'll find another way. But if we don't fight at all, she definitely gets away with it. And I refuse to teach you that it's okay for people to steal from you just because they share your last name." Around that time, word began to spread in the family that I was making a fuss about money. An aunt texted me, "Is it true you're trying to sue your own mother?" followed by a shocked emoji. I replied, "It's true. She emptied my daughter's college fund for a wedding. I'm trying to fix that." She didn't respond, but a cousin did. "Good," he wrote. "Someone needed to stand up to her years ago." The wedding RSVP never came for me or Mia. Officially, we were ghosts, uninvited and erased. But I had no intention of staying away. Not because I wanted to ruin a party, but because that was the one place everyone involved would be in the same room. My mother, my sister, Jason, and the extended family who had quietly benefited from my silence for years. I didn't tell many people my plan, only Liam, Sandra, and eventually my father. When I told him I was going to confront my mother at the wedding with evidence, his first reaction was panic. "Anna, you'll cause a scene," he said. "It'll humiliate everyone." "She already humiliated me," I replied calmly. "She humiliated Mia. The difference is that when I speak, I'll be telling the truth." He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked in a tired voice, "What do you need from me?" "The truth," I said. "And when it comes down to it, I need you not to stand between us. Not this time." As the wedding day crept closer, the nervousness in my stomach battled with a cold, focused rage in my chest. I printed every document Sandra said might matter. Bank statements, screenshots of the account history, highlighted invoices from vendors, and that horrifying email about my college stash being used for something fun. I slid them into a neat folder and slipped it into my bag. On the morning of the wedding, as I zipped up a simple dress, nothing flashy, nothing that could be twisted into jealousy, I looked at myself in the mirror and realized something. I wasn't the scared daughter anymore, begging for crumbs of approval. I was a mother, about to walk into a room full of people who thought they knew the story and show them the real one. The venue looked like something out of a magazine. White chairs stood in perfect rows, fairy lights were wrapped around trees, and flowers cascaded from every possible surface. It was the kind of wedding people would post about for weeks. As Liam and I walked up the path, I could feel eyes following us. We weren't supposed to be there. That was exactly why I had come. My father met us near the entrance, his tie slightly crooked and his eyes tired. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "Thank you for coming." "You might not be saying that later," I replied, managing a small, humorless smile. He swallowed hard. "I'll tell the truth if anyone asks me direct questions," he promised. "I owe you that much." The ceremony itself was a blur. I watched from the back as Rebecca walked down the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than my car, her face glowing as if the world had never handed her a consequence. My mother sat in the front row, chin lifted, radiating satisfaction. I stared at the back of her head, thinking of the email where she joked about my savings. My fingers tightened around the folder in my lap. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause. I clapped too, but not for the same reasons. I wasn't celebrating their union. I was acknowledging the moment before everything changed. At the reception, the music was loud, the food was lavish, and the bar was open. People laughed, danced, and made toasts. My mother moved around the room like a queen at court, accepting compliments on how spectacular everything was. She didn't notice me at first, tucked near the edge of the room with Liam and my father. "You don't have to do this," Liam murmured beside me. "Yes," I said quietly, "I do." The DJ invited everyone to quiet down for speeches. Rebecca and Jason took their seats at the head table, flanked by my mother and a few close friends. The best man spoke, then the maid of honor. There was laughter, clinking glasses, and happy tears. Then the DJ said, "If anyone else would like to share a few words, now is the time." I stood up. The room shifted. Conversations paused, and a few whispers rippled through the crowd. I walked toward the center with my heart pounding in my ears, but my steps never faltered. "I'd like to say something," I said, taking the microphone. The DJ, sensing drama, handed it over with a grin. My mother's smile froze on her face when she saw me. "Anna," she said through her teeth, "this isn't the time." "Actually," I replied calmly, "it's the perfect time. You see, everyone here has been talking about this beautiful wedding and about how generous my mother is for making it all possible. I think they deserve to know how she paid for it." A hush fell over the room. I could feel 100 eyes on me. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably, glancing at our mother. Jason's expression tightened. "Anna, stop," my mother snapped, her voice dripping with warning. "Don't ruin your sister's day." I opened my folder and lifted the first page. A bank statement, enlarged, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. 18 years ago, I began, my voice steady despite the room pressing in. I opened a savings account in my name and my mother's. It had one purpose: to protect money for my daughter's college education. Every overtime shift, every tax refund, every spare dollar I could scrape together went into that fund. I moved slowly as I spoke, letting each page catch the light as I turned it, making sure no one could look away. 6 days ago, that account held $199,000. Then a single transaction happened, a full withdrawal, processed by Carla. I pointed directly at my mother. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the crowd. My mother's face drained of color, but she straightened quickly, trying to regain control. "This is a private matter," she hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said quietly, clearly. "You're embarrassed because I'm telling the truth, right in front of the people you wanted to impress." I raised another page, an invoice from the venue stamped "paid." "The timeline is very simple," I continued. "Immediately after the withdrawal, payments were made to this venue, then the florist, then the caterer." Then I held up the next page, the florist's email thread, highlighted, undeniable. I read it aloud, word by word. "Don't worry about the cost, darling. Your sister's college stash is finally good for something fun." I looked straight at her. "Those were your words, Mom." The room dissolved into whispers. Somewhere near the back, someone murmured, "Oh my God." Jason rose slowly from his seat, his eyes locked on the paper in my hand. "Is this real?" he asked, his voice tight. "You used your granddaughter's college fund for our wedding?" My mother's carefully practiced mask finally shattered. "I did what needed to be done for this family," she snapped. "Anna would have wasted that money on some out-of-state school. Mia can take loans. This wedding is once in a lifetime." Behind me, Mia made a small, wounded sound. It cut straight through my chest. "You didn't even invite us," I said, my voice shaking now, not with fear, but with fury. "You stole my daughter's future, spent it on a party we weren't welcome at, and laughed about it. Everyone here deserves to know that the generosity you've been praising came from a young girl's education and a single mother's sacrifices." Jason looked physically ill. "Carla," he said slowly, "did you tell me this money came from a joint account with Anna?" She waved it away. "It's all family money. What does it matter where it came from?" His jaw tightened. "It matters if it's stolen." That word, stolen, fell into the room and stayed there, heavy and final. My father stepped forward, his voice trembling but firm. "Anna is telling the truth," he said. "That account was meant for Mia's college. Carla knew it. We all did." The energy in the room shifted again. This time, people weren't just watching. They were judging. Rebecca's face crumpled. "Mom," she whispered, "is that why you told me not to invite Anna? So she wouldn't find out?" My mother opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. For the first time, she looked small, exposed. "I did what I had to," she whispered. "I'm the only one who ever thinks about this family." "No," I said, dropping the final document onto the table, a copy of the preliminary legal complaint. "You're the only one who thinks your wants matter more than anyone else's future." I looked at Mia, at Liam, at my father, then at the guests. "I'm pursuing this legally," I said. "I won't let this be buried under guilt or family pressure, and I won't let my daughter pay the price for my mother's greed." I handed the microphone back to the DJ. For a heartbeat, the room was frozen. Then everything fractured at once. Raised voices, scraping chairs, Rebecca crying, Jason confronting my mother in a low, furious voice. The fairy lights still glowed. The music still played faintly, but the illusion was gone. I walked out into the cool night air, my hands trembling as the adrenaline finally began to drain. Liam caught up and wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "You were incredible," he said softly. "You didn't scream, you didn't fall apart, you just told the truth." Behind us, the chaos continued. Then Mia reached me, her eyes red, but lighter somehow. "You did that for me?" she asked, almost in disbelief. "I did it for both of us," I said. "But yeah, mostly for you." The fallout was brutal. My mother left one voicemail full of accusations, ungrateful, dramatic, cruel. I saved it for the lawyer. Jason called to apologize. "I didn't know," he said. "She told me she'd been saving for both daughters. I would never have agreed if I'd known." He mentioned unpaid vendors and possible questions about financial misrepresentation. Weeks later, the lawsuit was filed, Anna versus Carla, seeking restitution of $199,000 plus damages. The family split instantly, some defending her, others quietly admitting she'd done similar things before. My father moved out. "She says I betrayed her," he told me, "but I've watched her hurt people for 30 years and call it love. I'm tired, Anna." Mediation was tense. My mother offered a partial return. "I'll pay some of it back over time." "Full restitution," Sandra said flatly. "She didn't borrow this money, she took it." When the mediator stepped out, my mother leaned in and whispered, "You're really willing to destroy your own mother over money?" I met her gaze. "You destroyed my daughter's future over a party. This isn't about money anymore. It's about consequences." She caved. Assets were sold, loans were taken. The house went on the market. The designer bags vanished. Every payment went into a new account, my name only, Mia as sole beneficiary. The first time I saw the balance growing again, I felt hope. When Mia heard the case was settled, she asked quietly, "I don't feel sorry for her. Is that bad?" "No," I said. "That's honest." Months later, standing on Mia's campus during orientation, she breathed, "We're really doing this." "We are," I said, "because you earned it, and because this time, no one else decided what you were worth." My relationship with my mother never recovered. Low contact, different truths. I used to think being a good daughter meant enduring harm and calling it love. Now I know better. Being a good mother meant standing up, even to my own mother, when it mattered most.